Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about mobile headphone use, and in this case, if you have an iPhone, what using the Lightning to 3.5 millimeter adapters are like. Now I've done some research on this myself after getting an iPhone and having to go that route myself, and some of the information I wanted to find was actually kind of difficult to track down. Such as if you want to know what is the RMS voltage that an output of any given device, and in this case the Lightning adapter, can do. The shorthand is, from what I read, it's 1 volt RMS. It's about half that in European versions. From what I gather, in Europe there's a much greater concern of people turning the headphones up too loud and hurting their ears, and so all Apple devices sold in Europe are apparently built to run at about half the output voltage. So here it is here. This is the official Apple Lightning jack to 3.5 millimeter plug. It seems to work all right. I didn't have any issues with it. My one concern with it when I got it was, as you can see here, the cord is really thin. It's in line with the cord of the Apple EarPods, the corded version. So I mean, if you plug it into those, it blends in nicely. It looks like pretty much a continuation of exactly the same cord, which is okay. But if you plug in thicker headphones, like say these Biodynamic DT770s that I use a lot, it can feel kind of weird when you have an ample cable attached to something that then feels really flimsy, and the weight of it being plugged into the device and this cord wanting to pull down on it, I'm always kind of concerned that over time that cable is going to wear out. Whereas third-party ones that I've shopped, this one I believe is from Ugreen, does the same thing. You can see that here, I'll hold them up together so you can see the difference. There's a pretty substantial difference in the thickness of the cord, and this being braided fabric, you just get the idea that it's a lot more durable. That's the kind of thing that would hold up better over time. Now, in terms of sound quality and driving headphones, which is the other big question that probably people have, especially in my case, coming from an LG V50, which by most accounts has the best headphone output of any phone, period, other than others in that LG line, it was a bit of a step down for me, for sure. I could drive even my 250 ohm Biodynamic DT1990s. I could drive those pretty adequately off of the LG V50. That's how stout that headphone output is in that. I have plugged those headphones into the iPhone with these plugs just to see what would happen. In terms of sheer volume, at about 75% volume, it's okay, but you really notice that extra impedance of those headphones really robs the bass ability from your phone to really reproduce that. And I notice, like with these that are 80 ohm, I mean, that's still not really ideal for mobile usage, but these sound a lot bassier than the 1990s do, driven off of a phone because of the 80 ohms. When I briefly used the 1770 or 177X made by Massdrop, their tweaked version of the 1770 headphones, which are basically the upgraded version of the 770s. People, I think, were a little confused by the wording I used in my last video talking about the two. So the 770 is kind of the entry-level line, and then the 1770 is the higher-end line with the Tesla driver and all the other stuff. So the 177X is the Massdrop version of the higher of those two. Those headphones, the Massdrop ones, were 32 ohms, so meant to be driven off of a mobile device. I did use both of these adapters with that, and had a pretty good experience. The bass was ample, the volume was pretty solid at about 40 or 50%. I didn't really need to go higher than that. I find that for any kind of headphones that are geared at phones, whether it is those 1770Xs or EarPods or things like this, these all drive very well out of these Lightning adapters. These do okay. They're not like the greatest experience that I've had, but they also don't sound like garbage. My impression wasn't like the whole time I'm listening to them thinking, geez, this really isn't loud enough. And in terms of actual sound quality, I think both of these actually do a good job. I was actually very impressed given that Apple sells these for about $10. I think the Ugreen one is like 13 or something like that, which the price difference easily accounted for in the build quality, I think. But in terms of just how good does it sound, how clear is everything, what is the width of the soundstage of what you're listening to. These are actually pretty close to higher end DACs that I've used. I'm using the Sound Blaster XG6 primarily to listen to headphones at my desk. I would say it's not quite as wide sounding as that, but for something that's $10 that's portable, yeah, it's actually pretty surprising how clear this is. These DT770s sound pretty solid off of that, off the phone. You do have the issue of all this cord around you though when you're trying to walk around, but that's not the fault of the adapter. It does a pretty good job. I would say definitely be conscious of the ohmage. I got a little spoiled starting my like high-end, let's listen off of headphones experience with the V50 that could power basically anything. That when I got these and listened, they sounded fantastic. So I was thinking, wow, the 80 ohm DT770s really are a mobile headphone, until I switched this route. And like I said, they sound okay, but they're not. You are definitely more limited by ohmage. Used in the car, because like I've got an older car that has an auxiliary jack, I don't have the Bluetooth stereo and all that. These plugs work really well coming out of your phone, just plugging into the car. Again, the clarity is on point. The bass that I'm able to get out of the car stereo is fairly ample with these, so you're not really missing out there. But since they are supposedly capable of 1 volt RMS, as far as I understand it, I believe 1 volt RMS is pretty typical for a line out setting. I think sometimes that might be 2 volt RMS, but nevertheless, it's close enough that when you turn your phone volume most of the way up to plug into a car, that's a good experience. The one minor kind of annoyance that I have with iOS is I get why they do it. They want to protect people from cranking the volume up too high on their headphones and hurting their hearing. They figure maybe you don't realize just how loud this is that you're listening to, so I'm going to tell you. And so iOS will actually yell at you if you're listening at a volume it thinks is too loud for too long. And the one disadvantage of plugging this into your stereo is, this isn't actually headphones. So when I turn the volume up really high on the phone, this is going into an external stereo. It's fine. It's not hurting my hearing. The phone isn't smart enough to know that, and so you'll get harassed by the phone like every 30 minutes or every hour that you're damaging your hearing and you really need to turn it down. Unfortunately, that notification can't be turned off. That is something to be aware of if you're going to use these adapters in your car for that. Both of these also support the equivalent of a triple band TRRS plug like the EarPods come with. You see that it has 3 stripes there. That means it also includes a microphone. If you want that, make sure to look out for that if you're going third party on these lightning adapters, because not all of them do that. Some of them explicitly will say they only support headphones and not a microphone. I made sure when I got the U-Green one that it did support that. That way, if you have a headset with a microphone in it, you can use that properly out of there. I've had a good experience with that. My wife uses the lightning adapter from Apple all the time to do conference calls and things like that. People don't seem to have any problem understanding her voice. It's very clear. So that's good in that regard. If you're using the phone for that reason, to be able to just seamlessly take calls in the middle of listening to music and you don't have, say, wireless AirPods or anything like that, it does a good job. The other reason I have found that you might consider going third party on these, since I have found that the DAC that they put in the U-Green one here sounds to me pretty comparable to what's in the Apple one, is there are apparently shortages of the Apple brand lightning adapter. And I've had, I ordered this on Amazon, and when a couple of days later I tried to order another one, it actually came up with a message saying, like, you've reached the maximum amount of this that you're allowed to order within some period of time. It's kind of arbitrary what that is. But apparently they lock it down so that you can't order, like, too many of things that it deems there's a shortage on at once. And so if you're a person who says, I want to have one of these for my house and also one in my car or whatever, so you're going to order a couple, you might run into issues ordering the Apple brand one, where I didn't see those kinds of restrictions on the third-party one, so that may factor into your decisions of how you want to play it with those. One other simple question that I have seen asked that I had to read a little about myself, and since I'm talking about it, might as well reference it here, is, yes, your iPhone only does have one lightning jack, and using one of these does mean you can't charge at the same time unless you get either Apple's brand or a third-party brand of those little splitters where it basically turns a lightning jack into two lightning jacks. A lot of them will actually be designated with little pictures on each port. One of them is for charging, the other one is for headphones, and then you can plug this into that. It does feel a little silly having an adapter plugged into an adapter, like you've got half a dozen things coming out of the phone, but that's where we are if you're still trying to use wired headphones on an iDevice, or really a growing number of phones these days. It'll just be the USB-C equivalent of this instead of the lightning jack, same deal. I've read that people even use the USB-C version of these out of their laptops or tablets and have had really good experiences, and evidently off of a computer it'll go up to, I think, like 1.5 volts RMS, so it's a little more powerful that it can output out of that. So you might have better luck driving higher ohmage headphones using one of these if you're plugging into your computer. And that's a cool option because people have reported that the sound quality of these adapters tends to be better than the headphone jack that comes pre-installed on some laptops and some tablets. And so if you're thinking, well, I already have a headphone jack, why would I do that? Evidently the DAC in this is higher quality than what often comes in computers. So there may be a use case for you to use one of these if that's where you're at, unless you're in a scenario of I have 200, 300, 400 plus ohm headphones. These probably wouldn't run that extremely well, but you could use a variety of other solutions. I think the company Schiit makes a couple of different well-respected DAC and headphone amps. Sound Blaster X, the G6, is the newer version of theirs. It's a USB sound card that also has a headphone jack and headphone amp in it. You could use that off your computer as well. It's a little more expensive. I think for a lot of people the appeal of these is instead of spending $100+ on a fancy external sound card, 10 or 15 bucks on something you could plug right into the computer and get decent sound quality is of course really appealing if your headphones are within the range that these could do it. All right, that's about all I wanted to say about those for now. I think if you have questions, go ahead and ask, and if I can answer them based on my experience, I'm happy to. But hopefully that provides some clarity for people that, like me, were looking into this stuff, and some of these pieces of information are a little hard to find on the internet. So I hope that was helpful. I'll catch you in the next video.